Hi, everybody. Welcome to the week 6 huddle. I almost forgot what week it was. The time is flying so fast. So tonight, as promised, we have one of our esteemed librarians, Joe Lauterbach, on the line. He's going to take over and show you a little bit about Noodle tools, which we've been talking about in class, and they are all ready to learn. So I'm going to turn this over to you, Joe.
Outstanding. Thanks. Okay, so I will share my screen then.
Okay.
And everything is working properly. You should be seeing Welcome to Library Services. Is that right?
We see that. Yep.
Okay, excellent. All right, then. Well, let's jump right into it. First things first. Well, my name is Joe Lauterbach. As Professor Monahan mentioned, I am one of the DeVry librarians. I usually do these kinds of presentations for the students and faculty of the East Coast. And so tonight what I want to show you, as expected, will be Noodle tools. I'm going to get in there and show you how to access that. I just want to make you aware really quickly, if you've not used the library before, if you run into any problems, right up here in the upper right-hand corner, there's a link that says Ask a Librarian. And if you have any, like I said, any problems whatsoever accessing or using any of the library resources, click on that link and it's going to bring you to a page full of options. And one of them is live chat. So you could click there and it would open up another window and you would just put in your question. And next thing you know, you'll be chatting live with a librarian. We also have an 800 number. So you can call that number to get in touch with any of us librarians. If we are not there, do leave a message, because that probably just means we are in a meeting or working with another student, and as soon as we're off the phone, we'll give you a call back. Also, after hours, you can email us, and then for people who want extensive one-on-one assistance, you can even set up a so-called IROC, an individual research online consultation, and that lets you meet with a librarian for up to an hour, and you have your own personal research guide for that time. So I just wanted to show you that very quickly. Quick plug. You'll find on the libraries.
Can I just ask you one question about the IROC?
Sure. Yes.
For our online students, is that done virtually?
Yes. Yeah, it's all online. So and it will be typically via WebEx. Sometimes if it's not too in-depth a question, we can do it just over the phone.
So if they're working on a research paper and they need some help finding resources, that's what IROC would be used for?
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. I mean, if you feel like you need maybe a little bit more assistance than what you can get out of a quick chat or a quick phone call, then yeah, use the IROC. But and sometimes we'll even tell you, like if you come into the live chat, we'll say, this looks like a monster. We're not going to be able to get this done, by a chat. Usually, what I'll do is I'll ask if I can call, and then or you can call me at the 800 number, and then we can do it a little faster that way. But if it's really something in depth and you really want like a soup to nuts kind of review of what you have available, then the IROC is the thing to do.
Okay.
But I want to let the options are open. Sure.
I want to let everyone on the line know that I'm manning the chat. So if you have questions as Joe's going through this and you don't want to interrupt him, you could put it in the chat and then we'll scroll back and look at it.
Oh, good. Thanks. Great. And as I started to say, you will find elsewhere on the page direct contact information for me, and I would never tell you not to contact me directly. But, I don't work every weekend. I don't work every evening. I don't work, when I'm on vacation. So sometimes I usually refer students to these links here, because this way you'll get somebody, if I'm not around. I'd appreciate it if you were loyal to me and you wanted to just reach me, that's fine. But, I might not be around. So use the general resources. That will work best. The only reason I say that is because I just was away on a conference last week, and I had a student who had apparently been waiting for just since the evening before I left for a response from me personally, when it really could have gone to anybody. Okay, I just wanted to throw that out there. So yeah, if you're running any problems, usually Ask a Librarian service, any of those features, whichever one makes you most comfortable and you think will work for you. I should also let you know, in a few weeks, the library homepage will look a little different. All the same resources will be here. It'll just be a little streamlined and probably look a lot neater. So just be aware of that. For now, there are two ways to get where we want to go on this page, which I think is confusing. The quick and easy way is to click on this Databases tab, Noodle Tools is not technically a database. It is more of a utility, I guess you would say. But we didn't know where else to put it, so we put it there under the database list. And first time you come into Noodle Tools, see, I would have, hold on, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to completely close that out because I want you to see, you don't want to see that. We'll save that. There you go. I'm going to open it up completely new because I want you to see the process to get in there. There you go. So when you come over here, click on Noodle Tools from the Databases tab. And this is our new login process. So of course, once you're logged into Canvas or to the portal, you are logged into the library as well. But if you went straight to the library, and I do recommend that rather than trying to find the library link, which can be buried on the in Canvas and in the portal to some extent. If you just remember library.devry.edu, you might want to bookmark that, and then you can come straight over to any of the resources that you want without having to dig through the Canvas course. Then when you come over to Noodle Tools, your first instinct is going to be want to sign in. You will, of course, want to create a personal profile within Noodle Tools so it knows how to save your information that you're going to put in there. So I have an account, and I'll show you that in just a second. But the first time you come over, you want to go as a new user. You'll see here, if you haven't used Noodle Tools before, click Register. And when you come over, you're going to see, all right, well, these are the various options. You have an account linked to a school or library subscription. That's us. And you will select that, if it's not already pre-selected, that you are a student. And if you are a student, then it's going to ask you your expected year of graduation. And the reason it wants that is so that it knows when to take your information out of the database. So it's going to purge you after you graduate. So, I would probably fudge that a little bit. If I think there's even a remote chance that I might want my papers, for a little bit afterwards, I might fudge that a little longer. But then you come here, you create a personal ID, and this is something that you create. You make it up. It's your own personal ID. A lot of times we tell students, just use your student ID number because it's a unique identifier. It doesn't go anywhere, and nobody can do anything with it anyway. That way you won't forget what your personal ID is. Then you make up your own password. When you do that personal ID, it's going to ask you to check availability. So like if your name is Smith or Jones, there's a good chance that your ID has already been taken 15 times over. So that's what that's for. But then you can come up with your own password. And then there's this so-called easy login retrieval. You're going to put in your email address and then just your initials and the last 4 digits of your phone number. That way, if you do forget your login, you'll go through those steps to gain access to your password, or reset your password, I should say. And then you just click register, and then you are good to go. You're off to the races. So let's go back over to this page. Let's see if I can remember what my password is. Just typed it 2 minutes ago. There we go. Okay. So when you first come to this page, it will be blank. There will be nothing on this page where I have, like 20 or 30 demos that I've set up over the past couple of years.
I'd like to see fish flakes.
Yeah, that would just made a little weird. That's an ancient Second City TV reference. I don't know if you remember John Candy with that crazy episode. But
I remember John Candy, but I don't remember fish flakes.
Yeah, we could talk about that offline. But it was Second City TV. That was my show back in the day when it was still on. In any case, so the first time you come here, this will all be blank. And some of these, yeah, I do get a little crazy with the examples. But what you're going to do is go up here to this green button the first time you come over, and you're going to click New Project. And then you'll give it a name, like Angle 112, demo paper or something like that. Your title will probably be more creative than what I'm coming up with. I should hope so at any rate. And then you're going to tell it you want APA. And then you're going to tell it that you want the advanced version. These other junior and starter, I would assume that's for like grade school or high school or whatever, but this is the style that we want, or the level that we want. And then we just hit submit. And then it comes to this kind of crazy looking page, and you're wondering, well, what is all this good stuff? And this is stuff that most people, in my experience, ignore. Well, you could theoretically, though, use this to prepare your entire paper, like in tandem with Google Docs. If you had a Google account, you could set up your paper in Google and then theoretically tie the resources that you're using here to Google. I've not done that personally, and I don't know anybody who has. I'm not saying that it's a bad thing. I'm just saying I'm not aware that any student has actually tried it. I think most people, what they use this for is setting up their sources. However, before we get too far into the sources, I should note too that it's really a great resource for setting up your notes as you're preparing a paper. And if you don't mind me taking a slight detour, I'll be happy to show that. Because what this is good for, a lot of times when I'm working with students and they're trying to figure out, well, how do I incorporate this information without literally copying and pasting the information? Well, this kind of shows you in electronic form what we used to do back in the old days, where you get a stack of 3x5 note cards and you would write down the source and then what you found out of that source. And unless you were, truly, detail oriented, you weren't going to write down the entire quote. You were going to put those words, you were going to summarize it and put it in your own words. Well, this kind of does that for you. And I won't say it does it for you, but it makes it easy. So for instance, if I were, I don't know, we'll just go back over to the library homepage and we'll grab a piece of information. So I'm just going to, let me bring that up over here. I'm sorry, so you can see it. So if I were to go to the library homepage, maybe I just want to copy and paste some text. So I'm going to grab this block of text here. I'm quoting this source, right? I'm going to minimize that. And then I would paste that here. So now I have the direct content, the original content here. What I can do now, though, is I can take that and put it into my own words. So and then down here, because the whole process is I want to take the original information. I want to be able to cite that. But the whole process is going to be that, so I have the original content. Then I want to do my own paraphrase. I want to put it in my own words. Unless this were so magnificent a block of text that I could not state it better or more succinctly, then I would be using a direct quote. And there's an option here for that. But, so I'm going to put it in my own words. And I might summarize it. I might expand on it. I can do whatever I want. But then below that, it offers me another place on my electronic note card here where I can put in what I think about that. And each of these little question marks explains, what it is that you're going to do. So here it tells me you're going to interpret or evaluate or reflect on what you've learned from this source, ask questions about what you don't understand, and so on. So that, I might say, well, what's so hot about a new login? Who knows? So this might be me, making a note to myself. This might be me saying something that I want to say in the paper, or maybe it's me, putting in my own spin on that. As you can see, I can't type. So, and when you do this note card process, in theory, like the paper almost writes itself, because now I've gotten the source, I've got what the source says, I have what I think about what the source says. So by the time I'm done with this particular note card, I could have a couple of paragraphs of content, and you can see how that could build one on top of another. So that by the time I'm completely finished, I could have a whole box full of notes, and have a whole page done. So I'm just going to, just by way of example, I just want you to see, what else it could look like. So then I put that next note here, and then I got my pile of note cards, and I can start to organize them.
I'm just going to jump in here and say two things. First, this is a really good tool if you're ever asked to write an annotated bibliography for any of your classes. Not that we're doing it in this class, but this is also a great tool when you're using a lot of sources. When you're using, 7, 8, 9, 10 sources, and you don't want to keep going through, which article mentioned this, which article mentioned that, and even if you print them out, you're not going to remember what it is. So you're going to have to look through all that highlighting that you did. This is a good way to at least establish what article says what. So even if you summarize the article, that will be helpful to you.
There you go. Yeah. So that's, and then we can see, I put in both sources. I didn't add any content to them as far as let's see here. Come on now. I want to add a notation to it. We'll come back to that though, because what I want to show you is how, after I'm done, I can add in a source so I can tie it all together. But while we're on this page, you can also set it up to do an outline. So I don't know, maybe I'll just make my topic sports. And my subtopic is going to be football. And then while I'm here, then I can add another level. So I can add another topic under there. So now you can see I have sports, and maybe I'll have, I don't know, something else. Or I could say I'm going to add, so you can see it adds a topic, which would be they call a sibling. So it's something on the same level as the original topic, or I can add a subtopic, which they call a child. So for instance, maybe here I would type Super Bowl, something like that. And what's also cool is that if I wanted to, I can reorganize these and move my topics and such around so that it's like I can reorganize them in lots of different ways. So now I have my top level, my next level. So if I get my topics out of order as I'm developing my outline, I can reorganize it. And this is cool too, because this then gives you the skeleton, if you will, to hang all of these notes on. So now I have my framework. I know what I'm going to say. I have my sources. I know what they say. And that's where I have, and so it's, like I said, the paper then starts to fall together for you. And you can, and all this is customizable as you're going through. So you might say, oh, well, that topic's in the wrong place. Let me reorganize that. Or, this, I want to cover this later than that. So I'm going to move that down and do that afterwards. So there's lots of different things you can do. However, in my experience, just about everybody I've worked with using Noodle tools wants to use it to make their list of references. And that's not a bad thing, because this is a great source for doing just that kind of thing. And the first time I come over here, if I have my list of references, I have nothing in it. So I'm going to go up here again where it says Create New Citation. And this is what's really cool about Noodle tools, I think, is that it's going to walk you through the entire process. On the other hand, if you're well versed in doing APA reference sources, lists of references, you'll find that Noodle tools might get a little tiresome. Just because, all right, I know how this is done. I don't want to go through answering all these questions and filling in the blanks. I know the format. And at that point, you can kind of say, all right, I've graduated from Noodle tools. I feel that way myself about Noodle tools. I can do, a general journal citation. I can cite a printed book. I can cite a website, more or less without having to refer to the style guide or coming over to Noodle tools. But there are times when I come over here and I see, well, I don't know exactly how I would cite conference proceedings. That's something completely different. I don't know how I would cite chapter and verse out of the Bible, or maybe a photo or an illustration. So when I have those kinds of situations, then I come over to Noodle tools. I just go and do one of the quick one-off kind of a thing, and I crank out the citation that I need. I copy and paste it, and then I can move on.
I just want to say that Joe is fantastic, because I cannot to a citation without relying on either EasyBib or Noodle Tools or Citation Machine. So if you never get to that point, you're okay.
Yeah, I just, it's something unfortunately I kind of live and breathe, citation anymore. I do
Yes.
these presentations a lot, so I'm always helping people with them. But very seldom do I see somebody come and say, well, how do I advertise, how do I do an advertisement? Well, I don't know. Let's go to Noodle Tools and we'll find out. And I've never caught this thing in an error yet, so it's pretty cool. And before we part ways, I'll show you. You might already be familiar with the Purdue OWL. I use that as my backup, so I can, if I think something went wrong in Noodle Tools, I can go over to the Purdue OWL and I can verify, because that's another really good resource. And pardon my South Philly accent. When I say owl, I mean OWL, the bird. That's how it's spelled, Purdue OWL.
They've heard me say it, and we've used it in the previous huddles and also online. So I think they're kind of familiar with the owl. So that's good.
Yeah, I love the owl.
The owl is great.
Yeah. So okay, so but let's say, all right, well, I'd like to think we found a source from one of the library's databases, but you might be citing on a website. You might have a printed book or a physical object. So you can see there's all sorts of things here you could be looking at. Because you can cite just about anything, something you viewed or heard, whether it was a film or whatever. So you can see all different ways, things that we can cite. I'll show you one, what I think would be the thing that you're most commonly going to run into would be probably, oh, yeah, thanks. Yeah, I thought I spelled that out. Yeah, the OWL, OWL, Online Writing Lab. But one of the things you're most commonly going to come across, especially as you get further down the line, your professor is going to ask you to use a scholarly source or peer-reviewed sources. And what they mean by that is you're getting into scholarly journals. So that's one that you're going to do a lot. Now I should, but I don't have to hand a journal article. So I'm going to just run over to the library webpage real fast. And I'm just going to crank out a quick and easy search. And if any of this is news to any of you using these resources, don't hesitate to ask. I'm happy to talk about them too. Or you can just pop back in and check it out on the Ask a Librarian service. Just fish, no flakes this time. I don't think I'd get any results. Okay, so I got an article from a journal. And I'm going to use this then to just kind of toggle back and forth and get my information to put into my. Oh, wait, I take that back. Well, it is a journal. And okay, well, I'll use this. So let's go back over to this thing. And what's it asking us for? The first thing it asks for is a DOI. That's the Digital Object Identifier. That's a relatively new thing. I mean, in the past several years, that's really come to the fore. What that number is, it's always going to look like this. It's going to start, doi.org/ and then 10 point something or other. That's just a unique identifier that's given to a document, typically born digital. And it's a cross-platform kind of a thing. So you could search in the library databases for that DOI, and if the article is in or that document is in the database, it should bring that article up or that document. You can go to Google or Yahoo or whatever and search for that DOI, and it should bring up at least a reference to that article. The article might not be available in full text, but it'll bring you, to a citation for that article. So that's what the DOI is about. If you don't have one, don't sweat it. You move on.
Where would we see that, Joe?
Say that again. Oh,
where would we find the DOI? Like, would that article have one, the one that you just pulled up?
It
on Fish?
didn't, which was kind of a disappointment to me. I didn't see one. So you know what?
Where would you normally see it?
It'd usually be at the end of the citation or the beginning of the citation. Let's see if I can find one that really.
And as Joe said, if you don't see one, don't worry about it.
Yeah.
Just
Oh,
move
there's
on
one.
to the next item. Oh, there it is. I see it.
Yep.
DOI.
Yeah, this is a good example here. Let's see, 12 pages, volume 4. Yeah, let's use that one. So that would show up here, somewhere on this page. I know I saw it. There it is.
Oh, at the end. Okay.
Yeah, it's at the end there. And while we're looking at EBSCO, somebody's going to see it. There is a citation feature here. If I were to click on that, don't get too excited if you haven't seen it before, because it does an okay job, but not a perfect job of putting together your citation in APA format. In this particular case, it looks like it did okay, except that I personally would have probably made killer whales lowercase, like lowercase k, lowercase w, since it's not a proper noun. But bigs would have to be, Kuril Islands would have to be capitalized. But the convention in APA, of course, is that those would be lowercase. So, this isn't a bad citation, but I would have to know after I copy and paste that I need to go and fix those couple of capitalization things. It tells me right here, it's going to mess that up. It just tells you we're not good at that. So consult your library resources, blah, blah, blah. But we have a DOI, so let's take it. And you know what? It might even be easier from the actual article. So if I were to open that article, let's see if I can find it that way too. Because sometimes you don't, you'll find an article and it won't have all of that. It won't have that thing where it gives you all the bibliographic information up front. So instead, you need to get it off here. All right, that needs to go away. There you go. Because there's a DOI right at the top of the page. There it is. I want that, and it won't let me take it. Get out of there. All right, I'm just going to copy it all because I can't see what's going on. And we can just go back over here and then paste it in. So like I said, the rule is if you're ever missing an element of the APA citation, you just kind of skip it. And it's going to tells me that if you're doing this, then it's going to start with, let me make that a little smaller. Oh, that's too small, sorry. Okay. Yeah, but see this little caution symbol? API recommends that DOI should begin with the prefix ATT, blah, blah, blah. So I have to put that in. And what was the rest of it? Come on now. DOI.org, okay. So then I can take this part out. So then I put in DOI. And then I need the URL, which is literally just where I found that article. So you go back over here, you copy and paste that. Which is kind of weird because some of this information won't even show up in your citation. But if you want to do a thorough job, it's easy to do using a library database. Where did that come from? It came from EBSCOhost. But believe it or not, that's not the question they're asking us. All right, because EBSCOhost is not a database. It is an aggregator. And what they do is they pull together information from a lot of other databases. And, they make the databases available. Where is that info on this page? Well, there you go. It's not going to tell me unless somebody sees it. If you do, certainly don't hesitate to say something. Typically down here at the bottom, it'll tell me where that came from. I don't have it, so I skip it. And it's not a crime. It's not a shame. There's an accession number. I'll put that in just for the sake of completeness, but it's not. It won't show up in your citation. I'm almost certain. Moving on. And then we start to get to the information about the article itself. So we bring back our article. And we got a lot of authors here. See if I can get it from this. It's a little easier to copy and paste. So Shuleshko TS. So we're going to copy that. And I'm going to sort of cheat on this a little bit. Because I'm not going to put in all those names. But that's how you would do that. If you have more than one author, you just click here where it says add another contributor. Go back over, we'll grab another name. Permyakov Peter. Okay. And so on. You would just keep adding names. After you get this certain number of names, it won't stop you. It'll let you keep putting them in. But after about, I think it's 7 names, some ridiculous number, then it'll go to al, ET space AL, and that just means and others. So it'll list the first 7 or so, and then it stops. And that is the standard convention in APA anyway. You would only list so many. So we'll go back over here. Now we're going to move on to the title of the article. And this is why it did what it did, that citation generator, because it was capitalized in the article, so in the original article, so they capitalize it in their citation generator. And again, see, this thing comes in and it suggests to us what to fix. Now, it doesn't know any better. It thinks that, maybe we should fix Kurile Islands, but we know that that's a proper noun. I don't know if you capitalize that or not. I'm going to leave it. Somebody can yell at me, I suppose, if I were wrong. I'm pretty sure that should be capitalized. And then it's still going to say that, but we know that it's okay. And that's curious that it knows that a genus and species, the scientific name of an animal, you capitalize the first one, but it doesn't know that Kurile Islands is a proper name. Oh well, nothing's perfect. Back over here to our document, we have the page numbers up here. And this is one of the cool things. After you get familiar with, APA citation, you can look at this and you'll say, oh yeah, there's the page numbers right there. You don't have to think about it. If I weren't sure, I could literally go to the bottom of the page and just start counting. I can see 268, so that was 267, and just go through. Of course, that was also under the detailed record. Gave me the page numbers right there as well. Pages 267 to 278. So we pop that in there. And then once the name of the journal. What was that? Aquatic mammals. Okay. Back over here. Aquatic mammals, that'd be a different thing entirely. So yeah, as I said, I can't type. You'll see too, I glossed over this part. Unless you speak multiple languages or understand them, you will probably never really use this feature. But if you did find an article in a different language and it was translated, you would put the English translation of the title here. I studied a number of foreign languages back in the day, but I don't have any use for that feature either. Then we come to what some citation generators treat as optional, and they are not. This is the volume and the issue number. If you were dealing with a journal, a genuine scholarly source, it's almost always going to have at least a volume or an issue or both, more likely. So I can see I have volume 44, issue 3. Right there, that's where I'm getting that from. And I'm just going to punch that in there. 44, issue 3. And while I was there, I should have looked at the date, but I didn't. Oops. And that's 2018. Okay, cool. So that's all you need then for the journal citation. I have in the past told students that a lot of this stuff up here you can leave out. And the APA handbook is kind of, I want to say, nebulous on that, let's say. It's unclear to me. I think some professors would say, you know what, you can leave that database information out and the URL. And the rationale behind that is that the content of the databases, like EBSCOhost, it kind of comes and goes. I mean, it's not like it's not totally ephemeral, but the database aggregator, EBSCOhost in this case, has agreements with multiple publishers, and sometimes they have disagreements with various publishers. So the publisher will say, you know what, you can't use my journals anymore. Our deal is off. So then EBSCO has to go and yank all that content out of their database, which means then that URL and all that other information you put in there is now useless. But the citation information that you provided, with the author's name, the title of the publication, etc., that's enough for the reader to go and find that article. So that database information is kind of redundant. Because you can find that database. You probably find this article, maybe not this article, but many articles you can find not just in EBSCO, but in ProQuest or in JSTOR or any of a number of different sources, and that might change. So it's sometimes some faculty will say, don't worry about that stuff. I'm not worried about that. Give me the DOI if you got it, but don't worry about it otherwise. But you're always on safe ground if you include it. Nobody can fault you if you put in the URL because it's in the APA manual that you do include it. But APA is kind of on the fence about whether you need it or not even. Okay, so then we're getting to the end of this particular citation, and we can see down here then I have a couple of options. Of course, I'm going to put this in my final references list. Then I have down here, you can see I can save it, or I can save it and add an annotation. And so if you were doing an annotated bibliography, this would be where you would do that. You would save the citation, and then you would put in, your thoughts about that particular source. We're not doing that, so we're just going to click Save. Let's see what comes up. And there it is. So like I said, all that stuff about the URL and the database name and all the accession number, none of that even shows up in the citation. So, but there it is. I mean, the citation is done in a perfect APA format. So I have my author's names, I put them in properly. I have the date. I have the title of the article, the title of the journal, and that's cool. It knows to put it in italics for the title of the journal and leave it, in regular non-italics for the title of the article. It knows to give me italicized volume number, but not italicized issue number. Now maybe I want to go back and put the other 15 authors for that article. I can go and I can edit that. I can edit or add an annotation from here. I could copy it, or I could delete it, obviously. And then there's also the in-text reference, which is kind of nice. So that if I wanted to cite this in the paper, because as the whole point of the list of references is that it should be the complete list of everything you talked about or you used in your paper. So in the paper, you have to put that in-text citation. At the end of your sentence, it just tells me right here is the example. At the end of your sentence, this is how your citation is going to look. So you open a parenthesis, you put in the author's names, date of publication. If it's an exact quote, we put in page numbers. And then it even puts that in with the page number right there. Otherwise, I just leave that last part out and I close the parenthesis. So if we're just, a paraphrase or, a fact that I'm using, then I would just have Shaleshko and Permyakov at 2008, and then the end of my parenthesis would go right there. This goes into great detail on all the different kinds of ways you can do in-text reference. I don't think you want me to go through all that now. It just shows you multiple.
This should be familiar to them because we've been working on it for 2 weeks. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Good. So but it's kind of nice to know that it's in there in case you need a handy reference.
Joe, what do you see the difference between Noodle tools and using a machine like the citation machine?
As far as I can see, Noodle tools. I mean, I'm not well familiar with many of the the online
Yeah.
citation generators. I've used, like, just to compare them once in a while, like Citation Machine or Son of whatever citation. Um, what I think, and they have the same problems as the ribbon in Microsoft Word has, is it treats some things as optional, which APA sort of says, well, they're not optional. Like, when I was looking at the like the volume and issue number, a lot of those citation generators don't tell you to put that in, and that's kind of a problem because when you're going to all the trouble of using these scholarly sources, you want to put that thing in because that's going to flag for anybody who's in the know that, oh, now we're dealing with a journal. We're not dealing with Newsweek. Newsweek doesn't have volume and issue. It might have one or the other, usually issue numbers. But you got a scholarly source here. You want your reader to know it's a scholarly source. It's not. That's why I like Noodle tools for that. I would really love to show and use Microsoft Word's feature because it does the in-text citation for you. So you can be writing a paper and boom, paste in your in-text citation, and it automatically goes into your list of references. So it's kind of cool that way, and it's tied together totally. But Microsoft has its own issues. I'm not bad mouthing the company, but they
No, none of them are perfect. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So, but as far as I can see, I've not caught this one in an error, and I have caught some of the others where, like I said, it'll leave things out that should be in, kind of a thing. And this one's comprehensive, I think, is the big thing.
Then also off to the left, under where it says journal article, you could go to the live web page, and then it says you can archive and annotate. So everything's kind of linked, so you can get right back. Let's say you write that URL incorrectly, you leave out the 7 at the end. That's not going to take you back to the page.
Right.
But we could go, I guess you could search it again. But you could go directly to the live web page and then article and archive and annotate it, which is great.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's got a lot of extra features, I think, that you don't find in a lot of the others. Should I do one more citation? I think we have a few minutes. Maybe I'll do something else that people run into.
Okay.
Alrighty. So why don't we try? I'm going to go back to the database, and I'm just going to make one up this time, just in the interest of time. But sometimes I think what you'll find, an ebook is a little different. So if I were in a database, maybe I'm looking for something new. So I'm going to leave out the DOI because I'm just making it up anyway. I'll put in the URL, but I'm pretty sure. Oh yeah, actually, this is kind of the curious thing. You'll see. Oops. Yeah, I can't type. So you'll see how this differs from the other. We'll skip over that. But you'll see how this citation differs from the other one, even though it's coming from a database. It's a different format. So now I come down here, and I got my ebook. I have an author's name. And then we'll put the title of the book.
That's weird. That's the author I always use when I'm giving a...
John J. Smith.
John Smith.
He's a good guy. Very prolific.
Yeah. He's written everything.
There we go. There's the title of our book. And it's a single volume work, so we can just skip over all that other good stuff. Not part of a series. No fancy addition. So then we go and we save. There are these other things down here, and if you come across those things, I would say, if you're not sure what to do, just come see one of the librarians. I'm not super well versed in, the difference between the scholarly edition and the other edition, but we'll figure it out together. So I'm happy with my citation information. Takes a minute to cook. And there you go. So it's a completely different kind of a citation. So that's one from, and it tells me this ebook came from ebooks by EBSCOhost.
So it really depends on the information you have, garbage in, garbage out. If you don't look for these things to put in as it's prompting you, you're going to leave information out. And sometimes, like with the Smith example, there isn't a lot of information to put in there, so you can only put in what you have.
Exactly. Yeah.
So I promised yeah.
Go ahead.
I promised the class that at the end, why don't you show them how to print or export it, and then if they have any questions for you, because I know they had a couple of questions.
Oh, sure. Okay. So yeah, so when you're done, if you want to, you can, you just want to preview it and see how it looks, you can do that. This is kind of nice because you can see it does the hanging indent and all that good stuff. Oops, where did I go? There we are. So then, or you can just go ahead and export it to Word. And then you're off and running. And then just open it or save it as, and you're good to go. Then when you're done, of course, you're just going to copy and paste your list of references, and you append them to the back end of your paper. You put in that page break. You type references at the top of the page, and you put that in there. So yeah, that's kind of it. Of course, then you'll have to go back and manually put in your in-text citations. But that's the one thing that Word has over this, is that it ties them all together. But if you want to make sure your citations are correct, then I strongly suggest you use this one. Okay,
well, I think as I keep writing papers, I think the in-text citations become a little easier, but this references page always remains challenging.
Yeah, but and that's where the heavy lifting is done. So.
Yes, sir.
But
okay,
just by way of, I just wanted to note too, back on our note cards, to say maybe I have that one, that source. Maybe it's time now for me to add in. I can add in a citation. So now that I have items in my bibliography, I can say, oh, okay, and that came from here. So I can put that in and then save it.
So it all ties back, yeah.
So it all ties back in, so I don't lose track of where I found what information. So that's kind of cool too. Okay, so what questions do we have?
Summer, did you have a question for Joe about logging in?
Yes. I've been using the library to research articles and whatnot, and I've been wanting to save them under files before, we talked about Noodle Tools today, so I would have them in one place to refer back to them, but I'm not able to log in.
So when you're talking about logging in, we're talking about logging in to the profile, your personal folder in EBSCOhost?
No, well, just on the main library page, if you scroll to the top.
Uh-huh.
I don't see it on there. So, like, if I search for an article, then I put the article.
I see what you're saying. Yeah, I think I know what you're talking about. So,
doesn't it sometimes prompt you for your D number?
Well, see, that's the thing. If you went straight to the library homepage, it's going to ask you.
Hello, guest, log in for full access.
Yeah, you can ignore that until such time as you go and click on an article. Let's just see here. All right, yes, it's a login to gain access. It doesn't recognize that you're already logged in, is all.
So what did she do to fix that?
Absolutely nothing, because there's the article. You don't need to log in.
Have you tried that, Summer?
Sometimes it'll pull up the articles and sometimes it won't, but if I want to, like when I was trying to save it to the folder, which I guess I can use Noodle Tools now, but we had a video on one of our discussions and that was talking about using the library, and it said that our login was our D number and your 2-digit month and 4-digit year, and so
that's old info. Now your login is just your same login as Canvas or whatever. Now, if you do go to the folder in EBSCO, this is weird. I'm going to have to talk to the people at EBSCOhost, though. This isn't supposed to look like this.
Yeah.
Because you may know there's a new law in the European Union that deals with privacy issues, online, and any vendor, or a company that does business in Europe had to go and make all sorts of changes to their authentication and privacy materials and everything else. Because we just ran into this last week and then again this week. So what's happening is the database vendors, in this case, they had to give us a new snippet of code to put into our configuration file when you log in on our proxy server. And it looks like that thing broke this page. So I'm going to have to get back to them about that. But if you did go straight into, say, EBSCOhost, you shouldn't have that problem. So let's just go on back into EBSCO. And you'll see that thing up here too, where you have to sign in your folder. And that, with the GDPR, I think it was called, that thing they did to fix it actually made it so people couldn't sign into their folder. But if you're, now it should be working. Let me see if it's going to come up or if it's going to give me a hard time. Yeah, so you should be able to just sign in. I don't.
And it's
I have
regular
either
school login.
No, this would be something that you set up with EBSCOhost. So this is going to be you create a new profile. You're kind of past the library login. Now this is saying you're working with EBSCO directly, and you're saying I want to take articles and put them in one of your folders for future reference. So this is something that you set up. So when your first time you come over here, it's going to ask you if you don't have an account, you can create one now. So you would go in there, you click on that, and you go and set up your account, just like we did in Noodle Tools. You're going to set up a separate profile with this database vendor, so that you're going to be able to come back and access the material you put in a folder later.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's what's going on there. If that doesn't work, do reach out to me directly. And my contact information is on the library homepage. It's kind of buried. But if you go up here where it says Contact Us, you'll be able to see my email address right there, and just shoot me an email if it's not working for you. If you try it after class, and I'll be happy to follow up, because yeah, we've been going back and forth now for a couple of weeks trying to get that straightened out. I think the folder part is working, but who knows? Now it looks like they broke the one search box, so we'll have to talk to them about that.
So, and if you need Joe's contact information, you can always email me and I'll send it to you.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
Len had a question.
Okay.
Yeah, just real quick here to touch back on what Summer was highlighting earlier. Back on the home page of the library, is there a way to actually save your searches on there to keep from having to go back and refine those?
If you did use the one search, yeah, theoretically, or if you used, if you were using EBSCOhost, you can save your searches. So let me see if I can find that for you. It's not something that comes up often, but you would have to have a profile set up. You would have to be in your profile and then, work from there. But then you'll be able to go and save your search. That'll be an option that'll show up on the page. But yeah,
okay.
this one up here where it says "Hello Guest," that one you can ignore. Let me see if I can show you. Maybe in EBSCO or ProQuest. That one's probably a little easier. Put that. Let's go back over to Library Services, Database, ProQuest. By the by, ProQuest is essentially the same thing as EBSCO, probably just a little easier to use, even though it's not as pretty. Because ProQuest's advanced search only has one search box and so on. But yeah, you could do the same thing over here. You can put stuff in a folder. After you do a search, it'll let you put stuff in a folder, and it's going to tell you right then and there, set up a profile. But once you have that profile set up, you can save the search that you did. In fact,
okay.
it's not something that comes up often, but you could even ask it to run the search for you and send you, any articles that come up as a result of that search. You probably wouldn't want that after, a week. You're probably going to be buried under articles, but you never know. It might be worthwhile.
Okay.
Yeah.
And also you can save the articles, obviously, after.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, that's one of the cool things about EBSCO and ProQuest. I'm sorry, I jumped right out of that. But yeah, once you throw it in a folder, if I did a search, and I'll stick with my silly fish search here. And I should get 1 million results. Oh, 5 million results, sorry. But once I have an article that I want. Yeah, then I can save it. I can put it in the folder, that kind of stuff.
Now, each one of these utilities, I know this is ProQuest. How about the academic?
Academic Search Complete?
Yeah, academic
Okay,
search
yeah.
complete.
Well, all right. There's a couple of things to know then while you're looking at all these databases. The two main vendors that we have for magazine and journal articles are EBSCOhost and ProQuest Central. And
Okay.
probably half of these databases here either belong to ProQuest or EBSCO. So by way of example, when I was in EBSCO, let me go back over there. That page I kind of jumped through the first time we looked at it. So I go to the advanced search. I always do that. But then you'll see, here I'm searching in EBSCO. There's Academic Search Complete. There's Agricola. There's Alt Health Watch. There's Business Source Complete. Those are all EBSCO databases. And I can search them all at once just by selecting here and hitting continue. I do that almost as a matter of course. And truth be told, I very seldom will use this one search box because that is an EBSCO product and it only searches about half then of what the library has to offer. So I usually come over here to the Databases tab, and if I want to do a comprehensive search for articles, I'll search first in EBSCOhost, and then I'll search in ProQuest Central. Because they have probably a good 60 to 70% of their content is unique to them. So I might see some of the same articles, but chances are good that I'm going to find, a lot of different information if I search both databases. So,
Okay.
yeah, I'm one of the few librarians who hates the idea of that federated search, that one search box. I know my colleagues think differently, but I think we're doing you a disservice if we try to pretend that one thing is going to search everything, because it doesn't. It just doesn't work. Because one of the reasons for that is it's purely a business thing. EBSCOhost and ProQuest Central hate each other, quite literally. They're competitors, and so EBSCO claims that yes, our one search tool will search ProQuest just fine, and it does. But you have to jump through extra hoops to get to the ProQuest stuff. It's like, well, that's not searching just fine. But all right, I'm done editorializing. Sorry, but yeah, so Spice, as I said, so Academic Search Complete. Where was it? Business Search Interface, Business Source Complete. Those are EBSCO databases. And then you look at, accounting, tax, and banking, ABI, Inform, Arts and Humanities. Those are ProQuest resources. So I can search those. I can search all the ProQuest stuff by searching in ProQuest Central. I can search all the EBSCO stuff by searching in EBSCOhost. And then I don't have to go and search through the individual databases unless I want to. And then there are a few that don't belong to either of them, like IEEE Explore or Credo Reference. And those have their own, quirks or foibles that you'll have to, work around. But we'll talk about those.
One of the students came in late, and I just wanted to point out while you have this screen up that there, where it says Noodle Tools, Wes, he's right in the library, and he went under databases, and that's where Noodle Tools is. That's how you'll get into Noodle Tools. Okay.
Yeah. And for now, like I said, we're going to have a new library webpage starting in a new term. But for now, yeah, there's two databases links. There's this one on the tabs here. There's another one over here. And I usually use the tab rather than the link from the menu. But if you were curious, this would be the place to go, because this actually is the exhaustive list of all the databases, and it tells you which ones belong to whom. So you can see ABI Inform is a ProQuest database, Academic Search Complete is an EBSCO database, and so on. And then some just belong to themselves.
That's good.
Yeah. And this also tells you why you might want to use that particular database as well. So it gives you information about what's in it.
And if you get lost, go to the top of the page where it says Ask the Librarian and reach out. That's how I got Joe, because
there you go.
I didn't know where he was at this point. Although we used to teach at the same campus.
Absolutely, that's right.
That's right.
Yeah, go way back.
Good days when I used to bring the classes down for Call 148.
That's right.
You used to do the introductions.
That's right. Yep. Yeah, we still do it. We just do them via WebEx now.
Does anyone have any other questions for Joe? I don't see any in the chat. So Joe, thank you for joining us today. I hope everyone will stay on just for a couple of minutes. I just want to talk to you about a few things in class. Thanks for showing that to us. We appreciate it.
Oh, it's my pleasure entirely. Don't be a stranger. You can find me in the online library. Will do.
Okay.
Take care.
Bye, Joe.
Bye now.
Okay. Can you see my screen?
No. No.
You cannot, not yet. Okay.
No, not yet.
Share my screen. I am now the presenter, it says. See anything yet?
No, not yet. It's still loading, it looks like. There we go.
You see it?
Yes.
Good. Okay, so I just wanted to show you two things. First, I have an editing bite, which I sent out an email on yesterday, and I just put this in for the last couple of weeks of class so that when you're writing your paper, you can go to it, and every day I'm posting just a little something for you to look at. Whether it's how do I correct run-on sentences, so if you're one of those people who every time I grade something, I say to you, you've got run-on sentences here, you have to work on this. You can go to this little resource and it will tell you how to correct that. I also talk about, I noticed that a lot of students have difficulty with when do I use italics versus when do I use quotation marks for titles. So that's one of the, I don't know why this is running slow, but it is again. That's one of the things I put up here. So every day I have 3 days so far. I'm just adding a little something for you to look at, and hopefully you will get time to do that. So how do I punctuate titles is up there. How do I correct run-ons and comma splices? And they're all done in pictures. What should I avoid in my conclusions was today. So just little things for you to think about. You don't want to wait 2 weeks to look at this because there'll be like 15 different posts in there. And if you have questions on these, please feel free to ask them right underneath the little, editing bite that I have. I also wanted to touch on something that I read in the poll. So someone in the poll said this, and I really welcome all of your feedback on the class because it helps me to give a better class and to understand it from a student's perspective. And one of the things one of the students said is, and I told you this is purely anonymous, I have no idea who said this, when we receive weekly grades, I would appreciate a less point-by-point breakdown by rubric. This always felt confusing to me. It might be better if it was a more organic written comment on my work. Well, every week I do give you comments on your work, and I hope you're seeing the feedback along with the rubric, but I must put a rubric in, especially if you're losing points. I have to tell you where it is you lost those points. So this week I started something a little bit different. I put in some audio comments, and that worked kind of. And I also give feedback in the paper itself. If there are corrections that need to be made on a sentence level, if there's commas missing, if you need to do something in uppercase, if you are using first-person narration and you shouldn't be, I'll point that out. And normally I'll point it out a couple of times and then I'll say, from here on, you just have to keep looking for these errors that you're making. So I'll point them out a few times and then it's up to you to comb through that paper and see where else you're doing that. But because we're not in revision, we don't revise these works, it's really there for the next time you write a paper so that you say, she keeps dinging me every time on using second-person narration. I'm going to have to get that word you out of my paper. Then that's what it really is. It's just to call attention to the kind of mistakes that you're making. Does anyone have any questions on that or anything that we're doing this week? Good. I want to thank you, and I know 2 of you are sitting in the hospital tonight. I really appreciate your making the time to come here. I really do appreciate that, and I hope you're getting a lot out of these huddles. So without further ado, I hope Jessica's dad is on the mend, and I hope, Wes, that your daughter is okay. And keep in touch and let me know that they're okay. You got it. All right. Enjoy your week. See you in the discussions.
Thanks.
Hey, thanks.
Bye.
Bye.
Ready?